Hi there, I'm Jeremy Shirk with Nebraska Realty, and today's Realtor Rambling Moment is really just a step-by-step guide so that you know what to expect as you go through the buying process. Now, most of you don't deal with buying a house, but maybe once or twice in your whole life. So a lot of you don't know what comes next. And in this market, a big part of being competitive is just understanding the process and where you're at in that process. So I just thought I'd run through some steps. I created a little presentation step by step to help you through it. So let's go. So your very first step is going to be your initial consultation with a realtor. Hopefully that realtor is me, but not always. Find a realtor you know and trust, and maybe meet with a few of them. Even if it's a buyer's agent, you don't have to take the first one who offers to help you. Uh, During this consultation, we're going to go through a whole bunch of information. You're going to get a bunch of stuff dumped on you, but the important thing about working with me is that you understand that I'm going to also remind you as we come to each of those steps where you're at in that process so that you can understand what comes next periodically. I will be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead so that you don't have to. But during this initial consultation, we're going to talk about the steps. We'll go through this again. We're going to talk about some lender options. We're going to answer any questions you have. We're going to talk about what you're looking for, specifically your criteria. We're going to fill out a sheet on neighborhoods and bedrooms and bathrooms and school districts and styles and counties and anything else that you can think of. I have a whole questionnaire we go through to talk about, really get down to what is important and necessary in your house. And the important part about that is that when we get looking in this market, you don't have a lot of time to think about a house in most price ranges. So if we have these conversations ahead of time, you understand going into it what you do want, what you can live without, what you can compromise on, what you can't compromise on. And it just makes us faster and more competitive. So that's why I do that first. It's not as fun. It's not the fun part, but we will get to the fun part, and it will make the fun part more enjoyable because we've gone through that ahead of time. So, next up, another not so fun part, but absolutely essential is your pre-approval. Couple things about the pre-approval. This is where you go to a lender, you're asking for a mortgage. Sometimes people have done this before they come to me. But things that I think are important in a pre-approval, you're going to want to work with a local lender, more than likely. It's preferable in this market. Somebody who answers their phone is essential because not only am I going to be calling them, but so is the listing agent. When they get an offer, a lot of listing agents like to call the lender. They like to see, you know, can you tell me about this pre-approval? Did you run their credit? So work with somebody who might pull your credit in advance. Runs with somebody who has already seen your pay stubs and collected some of your documentation so that they can say, yes, this one is well qualified. I've already looked at them for their income has been verified, their credit has been verified, things like that, so that we know that it's less likely to fall apart because of financing. Uh, After you get your pre-approval letter, you come back to me, and this is where we get to do the fun part. We get to, it's not working. Hold on, there we go. We get to view properties. So when I get your list, I'm going to set you up on what's called a collaborative dashboard. It will list every property that comes on the market. It's going to, all of those properties that come to your email through me are going to be properties that meet the criteria we've outlined. We can play with that criteria. We can expand it if we're not getting enough houses. We can shrink it if we're getting too many. We can maybe play a little bit with location if we're not seeing things we like or price range. I mean, we can judge all these things around. A lot of times I have initial buyers who want to look at other websites and they wonder why those houses aren't showing up in their search, but it's because it doesn't meet one of your criteria. Most often that criteria is your pre-approval for the type of mortgage that you have. If you have FHA or VA, that limits the number of houses that you can look at because you can't look at ones that are conventional only. You can't look at a lot of fixer-uppers because the mortgage won't finance those. The other thing is it may not be in the right school district. It may not be the right square footage. We pay a lot of money for good pictures to make things look bigger, but if it doesn't meet the square footage requirements or any other requirement you put on there, bedrooms, bathrooms, main floor bathrooms, kitchen style, I don't know. We can put all sorts of requirements on it. And we can always adjust those, but keep in mind when you're working with a realtor, there's a reason we stick to those criteria, and the reason is usually to help simplify your life a little bit. The other thing is there are some websites out there who don't update regularly and stay accurate. So after we look at a property, we fall in love with it, we decide it's the one, we write an offer. We will have gone through the purchase contract in our initial consultation, so you have an idea of what the criteria are and the money's going to be and stuff like that, so that you're not surprised by any of these questions. But we're going to draft an offer that meets all your criteria. We're going to draft a competitive offer. We want to have that conversation ahead of time about being aggressive with our offers in this market, because we don't want you to lose a house you love because we were afraid to be more competitive and push more. After we look at an offer, we write an offer and submit it. This doesn't happen a whole lot now, but there is some negotiation for counteroffers. When I write an offer, a lot of times I've already talked to the listing agent. I've already talked to you. I've written the offer so that we can come as close as possible to bringing you two together. But sometimes there's a little thing you have to call back on. A lot of times it's moving the closing date in this market, or we have multiple offers. Can we talk about whether you can escalate or not? Things like that. Honestly, there's not a whole lot of counter offers going on right now because the market's so competitive. You just assume you're in a multiple offer situation right now, and there's usually one they like that they can take. If we get through the offer and we negotiate to the counteroffer, then we move on to an accepted contract. That's huge. That is one of the major steps in your purchasing process. If we don't get an accepted contract, we just go back to viewing properties and start from there again. And honestly, most buyers are looking at writing more than one offer. They're not getting the first house they write on. It's a little frustrating, and I understand that, but it's part of the competition. We got to have a go-get-it spirit. But after we get that accepted contract, this is the part where a lot of people think their buyer's agent disappears. The big complaint is that my buyer's agent stopped calling me. I will commit to calling you once a week to update you, but you need to understand that from here on out, a lot of the work I do is behind the scenes work so that you don't have to stress about it. This is where your agents, both buyers and listing agents, are really earning their commissions, and unfortunately, it's a part you don't see a whole lot. I'm going to be negotiating any inspections we ask for. I'm going to be scheduling those inspections. I'm going to be hiring those inspectors. I'm going to be calling the listing agent to get permission to go into the property. I'm going to be getting those inspection reports. You will be getting those inspection reports as well. We'll go through them. We ask for repairs. We go back and forth a little bit about the repairs. And then after we negotiate inspections, at the same time, I'm sending the documents over to the lender and the loan processing begins. You will have more of a hand in the loan processing because a lot of these documents are things that have to come from you. If they haven't already verified your income by providing pay stubs or taxes or whatever it is the lender requires for your specific situation, you'll have to do that. There's some additional documentation sometimes for residence or how long you've been there, payoffs for different things on your credit report that might show up. There's all sorts of documentation that goes into this lender process, but the whole time, I am talking to the lender. I'm helping you sort through what exactly it is they need. You're talking to your lender and providing documents to us to get to them. And we're working through that lender process so you don't have to deal with it as much. Title work. A lot of people don't understand what goes into title work. Title insurance ensures the ownership of your property to make sure that nobody else has any ownership claim on your property. And this is not as much paperwork. It's something the realtors and the title company deal a lot with, but we're getting your title commitments. We're reviewing them to make sure there isn't anything the seller needs to remove before a closing. If we have any repairs done, this is where we submit the escrows. Your earnest deposit goes to the title and escrow company. There is a lot of focus on making sure all the repairs are either paid for ahead of time and we have receipts, or paid for out of proceeds so that we don't have to deal with any liens being put on the property. And then just making sure that everything's as it's advertised to be for the property ownership. After the loans have gotten through and the title work's gotten through and all these inspections are done, you get what's called a clear to close. It means that all of the requirements have been met by the lender, all the requirements have been met for the title company, and you are good to close. This is your second huge milestone. It's massive. Maybe your third if you count your pre-approval. There's a lot of things to celebrate in buying a house. But this is where you officially call the utility companies to set up your change of address, your change of utilities. You want to do this early because a lot of in Omaha, Especially a lot of the utility companies, if they shut it off and then have to come out and turn it back on, there's a fee. But if you just transfer it over, there's a much smaller fee. So you can save some money by setting this up early. Plus, in weeks like we're having now where it's cold, you don't have to worry about pipes freezing or things like that as much. Um, and then we're going to get what's called a closing disclosure. This is a statement where the lender and the title company have come together and they have compared all their numbers in the contract, and they will tell you what all those expenses are and come up with how much you need to bring to closing as a buyer. This should not be a surprise to you because I will have gone through cost sheets with you on every property we offer on. I will have gone through a cost sheet for your price range in our initial consultation. The lender provides you cost sheets periodically throughout the process as well, and they should all be very similar to the cost sheet you have at the end. None of them will match up exactly because there's little things that change like tax prorations or interest payments for number of days that vary a little bit. But they will be very close. There shouldn't be substantial differences in any of them. So we will sit down and go through those together so that you understand them and know what you have to bring. And then you go get your cashier's check. And you set up your wire. Actually, this is usually done by the lender, but you just need to talk to the lender about it and make sure the wire is set up. If you're wiring your down payment and closing cost, you have to set that up. Although generally, I strongly urge you to get a cashier's check from your bank because it's just more seamless. It's easier. There's no delay in confirming that the title company received it. Sometimes with a wire, there can be a delay of a few hours. Once your wire is all set up, then we move to closing day. Closing day, you probably want to take at least a half day off. We try and be as cognizant as possible of your schedule. I try to encourage you to do these on Thursday afternoons or Fridays because then you can move Saturday and Sunday. That's exciting because this is where your property actually becomes yours. Closing, we go in, we sign all the documents required by the lender, all the documents required for title insurance, all the documents for the escrows, and we hand over all the money, and then you get your keys and begin moving day. The time closing takes depends a little bit on the type of financing you have and your loan officer or escrow officer. A lot of times, if you're cash, it can be done in like 15 minutes. But if you're a VA or FHA, that can be 45 minutes or an hour, depending on a lot of factors. You also can get your closing documents ahead of time if you're the type of person who likes to read through your documents and draft your questions so that you can do that more on your own time at your own pace rather than feeling rushed being in a room and being set to a tight schedule. And you can take less time off work if you can read it in the evening, that sort of stuff. And then moving day. Moving day is huge. Moving day is the day everybody has worked for so hard, and it's super exciting. So what are you waiting for? Give me a call. Let me know what you're thinking. What sort of if you're ready to buy, if you're looking at buying, if you're thinking about it, give me a call. We'll talk about your situation. We'll see what we can get set up. I'm Jeremy Shirk with Nebraska Realty. Thanks so much for listening. I hope it helped.